What is going on, guys? It's Bait. Welcome back to another video. In this one, we are going to be talking about landscaping contracts, why you need them, why they're important, what clauses you need to include in these things to make sure that you, your clients, and your employees are completely protected, and how these simple sheets of paper can save you a ton of time, a ton of money, and ultimately a ton of headaches from dealing with some of these situations that can be easily avoided if you just put these contracts in place. So first of all, before we dive too deep into things here, for those of you that might be visiting the channel for the first time, welcome. My name is Bain. I'm the owner of R8X Digital and Landscape Accelerator. R8X Digital is a marketing agency built by a landscaper, myself, for landscapers just like some of you guys that are doing $200,000 or more in yearly revenue and are looking to scale past, $500,000 to $1 million. And what we do is we offer done for you marketing solutions to help you guys achieve that goal. On the flip side of things, we also offer a coaching, consulting, and community called Landscape Accelerator. And inside this program, what we do is we teach you guys how to start, how to scale, and how to succeed in the landscaping industry. So with all that being said, why should you listen to me? I'm just another guy on the internet. Allow me to divulge. So for 4 years, I worked in the landscaping industry. Out of those 4 years, 2 years were spent running my own multi-six-figure lawn care and landscaping business. And here's some pictures of us and our equipment. And yes, I did have dreadlocks back in the day, but this is me and some of my friends and employees and some of the work that we were doing back in that time. So there you go. Anyways, during these 2 years of running my business, I learned a lot, specifically about, not only how to structure your business, how to run a business, because, for the 2 years before that, I was working for another landscaping company, and anybody can, get some equipment, mow, trim, blow, and do the job. It's not rocket science. It's quite simple, actually. But when it comes to running the business and handling the business side of things, that's where stuff gets a little more complex. So our business actually took off pretty quickly. We were doing, over $250,000 in revenue by the end of our first year, basically. And a lot of that had to do with us landing a couple big commercial accounts. And for those of you guys that are on the East Coast or in New England, you might recognize this picture right here. For those of you that are not, you're like, why are we looking at a water park, right? But this is water country. It's based in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and this was by far the biggest commercial property that we serviced. Now, although this account was an absolute blessing for us financially, there was a lot of headaches, there was a lot of situations, there's a lot of things that came up that taught us a lot of lessons, specifically about contracts, about working with residential and commercial accounts alike, and just some things that are very important to know when it comes to dealing with accounts of this size, or even just your cookie cutter lawns, mow, trim, and blowing, or whether you're doing landscaping, hardscaping, project based work where you're doing installs, high ticket stuff, especially. You really want to make sure that you get all of these jobs under contract, right? So whether it's lawn care, lawn mowing, snow plowing, especially, and anything in between, having a contract in place can really protect you. So a couple key lessons that we learned from servicing this account is, one, payment. And we're going to go deeper into the different issues that you can be solving with contracts, specifically as they relate to your clients. So anything that's like external, like people that you're servicing, that you're working for, and then also employees, people that are working for you. But the biggest things that we dealt with were payment, the scope of our work, and the frequency of the services that were going to be rendered. So the biggest things that we experienced with this account was, one, payment. We were on net 30, but if any of you guys out there watching this have ever dealt with a bigger commercial account, net 30 really means net 60. Because by the time that, we got paid, it was about 2 months after the initial service. And when you deal with big commercial accounts like this one, a lot of times your point of contact is not the person that's actually cutting your check. So, we submit an invoice, and then that invoice gets passed along to someone else, who goes to someone else, who, gets to the person that actually has access to the checkbook, and then they sign it and approve it. And then it comes back and goes through the mail. And then by the time it gets to our mailbox and we cash the check, it's been like 2 months, which is crazy and creates a lot of cash flow issues. So, contracts can definitely solve this problem. The scope of work. Now, this is another thing that we experienced with this account and a lot of residential accounts in general. I'm sure that plenty of you guys have had experiences, and let me know in the comments down below if you have, where, you've had a commercial or residential client that comes out, check in hand, and they're like, hey, before you go, can you just do this one extra thing for me? Or like, hey, while you're here, next time you come, can you just trim this as well? Can you hit this? Can you, blow this extra thing? Can you take this extra tree down? And it's like, bro, come on. Like, yeah, I absolutely will if you're willing to pay, and for me to be compensated for it. But this is not a charity service, and honestly, as much as you probably like some of your clients, it can get really annoying when there's these favors and these extra pieces of work, these things that are just expected of you to be done, when in reality it's like it's costing you time and it's costing you money to be there and to take care of those things. So I've just circled all of the areas that we were responsible for mowing, trimming, blowing, weeding, and maintaining, like the garden beds and the trees and stuff like that, basic pruning and whatnot. So we manage this account weekly, and basically the park would open somewhere between like 9:30 and 10 o'clock, and people would typically start showing up around 10:30 or 11. So we'd show up at like 7 or 8, and we'd have pretty much 2 to 3 hours to mow everything that was inside of this park. And then there was always extra stuff that came up. Always, hey, can you guys hit this one other thing? Hey, can you guys do this? Or, hey, this area needs a little bit of TLC. Can you guys just like stay for an extra couple hours and do this? Which is totally fine. And at the end of the day, we got paid for it. But one thing that would have been really nice to know, just to be able to, have a little bit of predictability in our business, and also be able to kind of schedule things properly, because, we'd have this account typically on a Wednesday, and usually there was a couple other smaller properties that were in the vicinity of the park that we also had to do. So, while it financially made a lot of sense to stay and take care of these extra tasks that kind of just came up on a whim, we also had other things to do that day. So it kind of created some scheduling issues. So understanding that, the scope of the work that you guys are expected to be performing is extremely important to outline in your contracts. You should have the full itemized breakdown, full list, exactly what services are going to be performed, in what order, how much, detail, all of that stuff is super important. And then another thing is the frequency. So with this particular account, the example here is this section right here. There's a big field in like an overflow parking lot. And actually it is this field right here. And you can see that we have 3 mowers with 3 people side by side, and it would still take us hours to mow this field. And we never really knew when they were going to ask us to mow it, because the grass did grow relatively quickly. And it was important because this is the front entrance. This is what people see right when they're driving up to the park, and the entrance is like over here. So they come around the corner and enter over here. So it was an important piece of property to keep maintained and keep looking nice, but it took hours to mow this field. I wish I knew like the square footage of it, so you guys could get a real idea of just how big this thing was. But when I outline it in this bubble, it's probably not an exaggeration. So when they wanted us to mow this field, they would take us an extra 3 to 4 hours there. So eventually we had to reopen up the contract and say, okay, if you want us to do the overflow parking lot, we can do it bi-weekly, and it's going to be an extra X amount of dollars on top of the daily mowing or maintenance and all the other stuff that we're doing inside of the park on a weekly basis. So once we got all these things squared away, it wasn't too bad. And then eventually, deeper into the season, once the paychecks had kind of caught up, everything went smooth. But I say all that to say that a lot of times when it comes to dealing with stuff like this, especially in the landscaping industry, because again, the work is not rocket science. Sometimes it might seem simple, but at the end of the day, you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes you have to get yourself in too deep with one of these situations where you realize, damn, I really wish I had a contract. And by then it's too late. and you're stuck with the consequences of, whatever particular project you're dealing with before you have these pieces of paper in place. So let's talk about some of the other key issues that contracts can solve for your business. And we already touched a lot on the client side of things, but for one, late payments, you want to make sure that in your contracts, you outline when you're getting paid, how you're getting paid, and how frequently you're getting paid. And then additionally, what the consequences are for the client if they choose not to pay you. So I know a lot of guys have a 3% interest compounded monthly for every late invoice. And you can adjust those numbers based on what you see fit and how you want to run your business. But basically, you need to make sure that the details of the payment method, payment frequency, and late payment consequences are outlined in your contract. You also have the issue sometimes of clients not paying you at all, in which case you're in really deep because you've basically fronted this work. You've spent time, money, payroll if you have employees. You're in pretty deep, and it obviously sucks to work for free. None of us are trying to do that. But what happens if a client chooses not to pay you? Now, some of you guys might be familiar with a mechanics lien, where basically if you have unpaid invoices for a service, then you can basically put a lien on someone's house. And usually that's enough pressure legally to get them to cough up whatever, couple hundred, maybe couple $1,000 they owed you for whatever services you had. But you can only put one of those mechanic liens in place if you have a contract for the services that you offered. So again, you can't just assume that, if they don't pay me, I can just, do a lien and I'll get paid eventually and it'll be fine. No, because you need a piece of paper. You need something that's going to hold water in court in order to place that lien, in order to get paid eventually. So having a contract, while there still might be people that try to, whether it's intentional or not pay you, if you have a written document with their signature on it, your chances of recouping that money, should they try to not pay you for anything that you've done, increases by, a significant amount. Another thing, we talked about this a little bit already. While you're here, can you just do that for me? We need to cover the scope of the services that you're going to be offering so that there is no room for interpretation, imagination, or discussion when it comes to exactly what you're going to be doing on that property. And if you outline that in your contract, along with the bulleted list of services, maybe it's for a lawn maintenance program, we're going to mow, we're going to trim, and we're going to blow. And we're going to do it for this side of the house, front yard, backyard, side patio area. We're going to trim all of the garden beds with vertical trimming, every single visit or every other visit, whatever. Then we're going to blow down all hard surfaces on the property and make sure clippings are removed and whatever. So you need to outline in almost excruciating detail exactly what you're going to be doing. So again, there's no room for interpretation. And when the client asks you for something extra, you can say, hey, this is outside of our contract. We'd be more than happy to do this work for you, but obviously we are going to submit another estimate or an invoice for this additional service. So you're covered there. Another thing, asking to cancel services whenever they feel like it. So I'm sure plenty of you guys have also experienced this, where maybe you have, weekly mowing customers. Maybe you have bi-weekly mowing customers. And then maybe you have some people that are on like an every 10 days sort of deal. And then, maybe it rains a lot and you're on a consistent schedule and you're trying to play catch up and you're busy. And then maybe you get a drought and, maybe things slow down a little bit. And I know that being from New Hampshire, typically around June, July, maybe like August, things are really slow. The grass is typically burnt out and mowing slows down. And a lot of our weekly and bi-weekly clients kind of asked us like, hey, can you, slow down on this? And obviously if you're running a business and you have overhead, you have expenses, you have payroll to meet and all these things, sometimes that's not something you can do. And in reality, the grass still might need to get cut. And at the end of the day, you're offering a service and you can't just have clients tell you when to show up and when not to. This is, a service. We're here to provide, a luxury for them. It is a commodity. Like, lawn mowing is something that anybody could do themselves. But then again, while we're offering this this commodity for them. We can't just be at their beck and call. At the end of the day, we still have a business to run. And honestly, you're not running a business if that business is not profitable. So there might be things that you need to put in place to outline, when your services start, how often you're going to perform those services. This is where you would, obviously set the standard of, weekly, bi-weekly, every 10 days, and then when the services stop. So in New Hampshire, again, where I'm from, there's, kind of a little bit of a window between like February and April, depending on how long winter lasts, when things kind of start to kick back up again and the spring rush kind of commences and grass is growing and ready to be cut again. In the summer, things die down a little bit when things get hot and the grass is dried out. And then typically around the end of October into November, sometimes the grass is still growing, but also we have fall cleanups that usually start around that time. And generally speaking, we try to have all of our fall cleanups wrapped up by the end of November, early December, kind of have everything squared away before Christmas and definitely before the first snowfall. So inside of your, lawn maintenance contract, what you'd want to have is, hey, we typically start mowing around this date. We're going to mow bi-weekly until this date. And then after that, if you'd like us to do a fall cleanup or something like that, we will do, the removal of all of your leaves along with your final cut for the season. And at that point, our services are concluded. Not only does this give you a lot of information as far as how you can run your business, because if you have someone that signs a contract and you say, okay, the price for their lawn that we're mowing is, $60. We're going to mow it, 4 times, or this is, 4 times a month. 4 times a month. So we're at like $240 per month. And we're going to mow this account for about 8 months, let's say, from the beginning of the season till when we do our fall cleanup. Now, and you have on a contract that this property is going to be worth about $1,900, a little under $2,000. And so if you have all of your clients on contracts and you know exactly how much work you're going to be doing for them over the course of the year and exactly what you're charging them and what your services are included in, this allows you to kind of project and look forward a bit. And that's really, really important when you start thinking about, the winter, when you start thinking about other services, when you start thinking about trying to expand your company, whether it be buying new equipment, hiring new employees. You got to look at your cash flow and you got to understand, not just the money that's coming in this month, but what about next month? Because landscaping is very seasonal, as we all know, and your income is going to fluctuate, go up and down, and do all sorts of crazy things. Contracts add a little bit of stability to that because you're able to know exactly when services are going to start and how many times you're going to get paid in between. So I hope that made perfect sense. Super, super important to understand that. Very, very important, especially when it comes to, like I said, kind of calculating and future casting the financials of your business. So another big thing with clients is some of them may or may not be comfortable with pictures being taken at their property. Now, obviously for you, you wouldn't think anything twice of this. If you do really nice work, you lay some nice stripes, you do an awesome hardscaping job, you put in some patio with some lighting, or maybe you do some turf, some sod installation, or you fix up someone's irrigation, get it working, properly, whatever. All of those things are super important to take pictures of, not only to continue to add and build to your portfolio, to use on social media, on your website, and advertisements, stuff like that. But it's also very important to document the work that you're doing while you're at the property, again, to kind of back up the contract that you had with the scope of services. So one thing that I would like to do is always take before, middle, kind of in progress, and post, or like after pictures. So throughout the entire project, we would see things in about 3 different phases. And so if there was ever a question of the amount of work we did or what things looked like when we got there versus what things looked like when we left, we would have all the pictures to document and prove that. And any, services that we did, we knew exactly what it looked like and what the quality of our work was and all sorts of stuff like that. And then also you obviously want to showcase that work on places like social media, your website, so you can use that to get more clients, right? So an important piece of a contract that you can incorporate is a media release form, where basically if a client wants to participate and wants to hire you to perform services, then they need to sign a media release form, which basically relinquishes their rights to basically have you be able to take property, pictures um, of your work while at their address. Now, obviously, you don't want to dox your clients. You don't want to take pictures with vehicles with license plate numbers or mailbox numbers, street signs in the background, stuff like that, or any other personal or sensitive information. Don't do that, right? Within, reason. But, if someone has an issue of you taking pictures of their grass with your lines on it, or their garden bed with mulch that you just installed and some plants that you just put in, like, you want to be able to take those pictures and you want to own the rights to those pictures. And also some clients, I've had this happen one time, and it was actually a much bigger issue than it really needed to be. But we had a client where in our first year kind of getting started, we did a really great fall cleanup for them. And we ended up taking a picture of the backside of their property with this big hill that was completely spotless, zero leaves, zero acorns. It was absolutely flawless. And that ended up being one of the main pictures on the front page of our website. And, turns out, like, fast forward 6 to 8 months later, that client happened to go onto our website and said, "Hey, I didn't give you permission to post this picture, blah, 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 blah. You need to take this down." And at the time, the, person that was managing our website was, not taking on new clients and was harder to get in touch with. So we couldn't have the picture taken down immediately. I didn't know how to run websites at the time. I was still very much focused on, building the landscaping business. So we had someone else that was doing it. And basically it became this huge thing where the client's like, "You have 24 hours to get this off the website." And I'm like, "Dude, I can't do that." Like, the person that managed it for us is like not getting back to me. So created this huge thing. But basically some clients, they might be like, "Oh yeah, take pictures, it's fine." But then they see it on social media and they see it on the website, all over the internet, whatever. And then now they have an issue with it. So the media release form is huge. You really want to make sure that you get that taken care of, because you don't want those kinds of problems. You don't want the angry phone calls, "Take this down now, blah, blah, blah." And if you're especially if you're putting it on your website, social media, or God forbid, if you're running paid advertisements with pictures or videos from that property, now you have to turn off a campaign that's generating leads for you because of, a client not wanting their picture out there. That is extremely unfortunate. So you don't want to run into that situation. Sidetracking just a little bit, this issue can happen with employees as well. There are going to be people that maybe for, whatever reason, don't want to appear on camera in videos or any sort of marketing material for your company. I highly recommend that you also have an employee media release form, which basically does the same thing that it does for the clients, which is like, "Hey, if you're going to show up and you're going to work for our company and you're going to do work with or for us in our company uniform, whatever, if you're going to be doing work at our properties, we have the right to take pictures of you in action, on the mowers, walking around doing whatever. And we can use that for internal use, or we can use it for marketing purposes." So most people won't have an issue with that, but it's just better to cover your bases, because you don't want people, it's just kind of a sensitive issue. If someone decides they want to come out and complain, and it's like, "Hey, this guy's posting pictures and videos of me without my consent," that's just like not an issue that you want to face. So making sure that you're covered on the client side and employee side when it comes to media release forms is super important. And another thing is, oftentimes that, your clients, especially the new ones that don't really know you super well yet, they think that you're their only client. So they expect, special deals and, "Hey, can you drop this price a little bit?" And, "Hey, I've had a rough month, maybe can you cut me a deal this mow, or can you give me one mow on the house just because I'm having this going on, blah, blah, blah." Or, "Hey, I know you normally mow on Wednesdays, but I'm having a barbecue and, I'd really like it if you can come on Friday instead." All those things, all these special arrangements, all these like, anything that breaks the structure and the schedule of your program, you can't afford to do that. When you're just getting started and you have like maybe 10 or 12 clients, you can do that kind of thing. You can make special arrangements. But at the end of the day, if your goal is to grow and scale, or if you already have done that, then how impossible it is to make everybody happy. You just cannot do it. So making sure that in your contract, you have, the services that are going to be rendered. It's like, hey, we usually do our mowing for this area on this day and this day, sometime between this hour and this hour. You can expect, within that window of time, your lawn will be cut, barring all weather issues or, other complications with our business. But we can assure you that your lawn will be cut within this time of day and this day of the week. So when you outline those kinds of things, you save yourself so much time and headache. Also with the payment thing as well. You want to make sure that you have it where you're invoicing, basically when they're required to pay you, is due on receipt, which basically means the second that you send an invoice for your services, you expect to be paid immediately. So that's another big one. You want to make sure that you have that set up as well. So if there's anything else you guys can think of with clients, let me know. And we can talk about that in another video. But let's move on to employees here. So some of them, depending on what position they are within your company, they might have access to sensitive information regarding your clients. This specifically applies to administrative positions, where maybe they're answering the phone for you, maybe they're sending emails or sending out estimates and invoices on your behalf. They're going to have access to client and customer information like their name, their email, their address, maybe sometimes even like their credit card numbers if you keep cards on file. And they're also going to have access to the back end of your business financials, right? They're going to know how much you guys are charging for certain projects. They're going to know roughly kind of what your month to month or annual revenue looks like. If they're doing payroll, they know, hey, John's getting paid $4 an hour more than fucking Jimmy. So, they have access to information that's sensitive, right? Whether it be personal or financial, you want to make sure that they don't have any ability to manipulate, mess with, share, or disclose that information to people of which it's not relevant. So you definitely want to make sure that you have a non-disclosure agreement, which basically means that all internal and sensitive information stays within the company. And upon termination, if you have to fire somebody or if you have to let someone go, any documents, any logins, any credentials that they had to access that information is going to be revoked, so that they basically, can't get fired, get angry, and then leak or release a bunch of information about you, your clients, your employees, stuff like that. You just don't want to have those kinds of problems. So boom, sensitive information regarding your business, sensitive information regarding your clients as well. Another thing, again, you don't want them to be able to just take off at a moment's notice. Let's say you have an employee where they get all this information and then just kind of disappear. They know a lot of things about you that you don't maybe want everyone else to have access to. So super important to take care of that. And another thing about managing clients and employees is it really only takes one bad apple to kind of ruin the whole vibe and the whole, morale of your crew, right? So it's very important that you manage this and keep track of everything. And honestly, as a business owner, one of your main roles, one of your main jobs is being a curator of culture. Now, that is a topic for a whole other video, but you want to make sure that you keep a strong team around you. And I understand that labor is hard to find. And sometimes with landscaping, no offense to anybody out there, but sometimes you got to scrape the bottom of the barrel as far as, you just need a body to come help you, move the mulch, move the rocks, cut the grass. It's, sometimes you gotta do what's necessary. But generally speaking, you want to make sure that nobody's getting special treatment. No one's getting, favoritism or seniority or whatever. You have roles within your company. They're structured, they're set up. You might have crew members, you might have crew leaders, you might have, salespeople, you might have administrators, you might have other staff or, mechanics, stuff like that. So another thing you can do with contracts is make sure that you outline, what these roles are, what they mean, what kind of work is expected from them, how much they're going to get paid for it, and, detail some of the other things related to that position. That way, if you have any sort of issues with people, hey, how come this guy gets this? And how come this is happening? And how come this person gets to do and say whatever they want and drive the truck? And it's like, inside of the contract that you signed when you joined our company, here's what was expected of you with the role that you're in right now. And it eliminates a lot of internal conflicts when you have clear structure when it comes to the roles and the payment and, duties, what's expected of different people who are in different positions. So After talking about all of this stuff, hopefully you can see and understand that contracts protect you as much as they protect your clients and your employees on equal sides of the fence. You want your employees to know that when they're at a property, they don't have to worry about, taking pictures, getting pictures taken of them, other stuff going wrong within contracts. You're also going to want to make sure you touch on insurance, liability, what happens if things get broken, and how you can basically make yourself not responsible unless it's like a belligerent accident. So you want to make sure that your employees and your clients are covered in all of those different means. And, at the end of the day, it's also your business, which means that your name, your personal assets, your business's assets, and your family's assets are on the line when you're performing, commercial services. So you really want to make sure that you have these contracts set up because, again, they protect you, they protect your clients and your employees pretty much equally. So contracts have been the biggest discussion that I've had to, address, I guess, in the past year or so. Basically, we've been building a community on Facebook called Landscape Accelerator. I also get DMs on TikTok and Instagram about this all the time. And this group now has a little over 1,000 members. And again, by far, the most popular question has been, do we need contracts? What should be in the contracts? And like, where can we get contracts? Because a lot of guys maybe don't have the time or maybe don't have the money to hire a legal professional to get one of these drafted and made up for themselves. So we took the initiative to take care of all of that stuff for you guys. And basically we put together the Landscape Accelerator contract template kit. Inside of this template kit, there are 8 different contracts covering all the things that I just talked about in this video and then some. So we have a residential lawn maintenance contract, commercial lawn maintenance contract, residential snow plowing, commercial snow plowing, a client media release form, an employee media release form, an employee non-compete agreement, and an administrative non-disclosure agreement. And we've taken a lot of time, did a lot of research, did a lot of preparation going through and consulting with a lot of professionals when drafting these contracts to make sure that they would hold water in court, that they are completely bulletproof, and that if you use these contracts within your business, you can make sure that your personal, your business assets are completely safe, right? So just a couple quick testimonials and reviews. Colby had purchased these contracts. He said they're definitely worth it for his lawn care business, and it's a hell of a deal. Right now, we are selling these contracts for a measly $44. If you were to go through and get a lawyer to draft up 8 contracts for you, I guarantee you it'd be a lot more than that. And also there's a couple lawn care influencers. You guys know who they are. I don't need to name names, but some of them are selling a single contract for $97. And we're giving you guys 8 of them for $44. So this is what they look like. And Colby has implemented these contracts into his business since then. He said it's a complete game changer for contracts and that you guys should check this out. So if you are interested in getting these contracts, what you can do is you can go to landscapeacceleratorprogram.com/contracts, or you can go to the first link in the description and I will be sure to have them there. If you guys have any other questions about contract related stuff, I would be happy to make another video on them in the future. But until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you taking some time to hang out with me and discuss this. And we will be back with more landscape content very, very soon. Hope you're having a blessed day. Peace.